a show that tackles the big issues affecting the BVI and the rest of the Caribbean. Searches for answers to today's big questions and gives viewers a unique perspective on developing stories. Follow the big story with me, Kathy Richards, only on JTV. This is the big story. I'm Kathy Richards. I want to thank you so much for joining us for this edition. With me is the man himself, Stacy Mehta. Many of you call him Buddha, and I guess he's comfortable with that. I want to welcome you to studio.
Thank you for having me, Kathy. How are you doing?
I am, still in the celebration mode, kind of thing.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
Yes. Before time, you would have sat here to talk on different things, but much to my surprise the other day when the big announcement was made, all who are going to be contesting the general elections for the Progressive Virgin Islands Party, there my friend is, Stacy. I'm like, Stacy, how, why? Answer that question that I had there in my mind.
So that seems to be a question that I'm getting almost every day, which I can appreciate where it's coming from. Politics is something that I have thought about in the past. It's been brought to me, but it never seemed right. And I think what happened late last year is I started to see things in our country that didn't make my future in our country seem like it could be what I wanted it to be. And then when I started to have conversations with younger persons who have worked with youth in the BVI and even older persons, my parents and others, family members, trusted friends, I think we were all on the same page, that the trajectory of the BVI was not one where we were comfortable in where it was going. And I also realized that a lot of the young people I've worked with seemed very disenfranchised. They also were, they lost hope. We all have ideas in our head of what life is supposed to be in the BVI, and that didn't seem achievable based on where we were and where we were going. And I also saw young people saying, I'm not voting, I'm not getting involved in politics. And when I'm 65, I would like to know that the leaders in our country are some of those that I worked with when I had the opportunity, whether as a teacher or youth development worker. And I became disheartened. And I said, you know what? Okay, you guys keep telling me I should do this, I should do this. I'll step out and see what happens.
Okay, but there is a conversation that we're hearing very often now. There is this big cry for fresh blood to take up seats in government. And then there is this notion when we see new people come forward that, man, he could better impact the development of this country by being out of a government. How do we weigh that balance?
So I'll give a little context for this. I left the teaching service in 2006, right? Started working on YEP, as most people would know. And while out of the system, I tried my utmost to offer assistance, advice, just to shape things, whether it was in education, whether it was in social issues in our country, or even in youth development. YEP was supposed to be a pilot project in our country. We were supposed to have at least 8 of them. 18 years later, we still have 1. There's hope for more, but I decided and I said to myself, where I'm sitting, I can't make the influence I would like to see happen in the country. So I need to sit somewhere else, Kathy. So stepping out of the private sector or the nonprofit arena and stepping in more to a political, which is public service, I'm hoping that by sitting there, some of the success that I have had, I can bring it to the public service and do what it is I always intended to do when I left, which was to have an impact in the community. Because if you don't sit in the seat and drive what needs to happen, it may never happen.
In your evaluation, with a Stacy Mehta sitting in government, along with other colleagues, where do you see, or what impact do you see being made within, you got to give it the minimum of 1 term?
Of 1 term? If anything within 1 term, I think planning for where the country needs to go for the next 20 years can be done in 4 years. Also, the implementation of certain programs that will lead to where we need to go can happen in education, in youth, in tourism, even in building our economy. We've not planted many seeds lately, in my opinion. So it's time for us to plant seeds, both figuratively in our country, but also literally, because I am a big fan of agriculture. So, I mean, if you're heading down a road and you realize that this is not the road you want to go, and you change your path, you have to start moving in order to get to the end of that path that you're trying to get to. So I don't think there'll be any stagnation, movement, and the movement can be picked up by someone else. I think right now there are things in our system, in our country that are working. They need to be tweaked, and we can have some forward movement.
One thing that persons would argue to say that, one reason why governments after governments continue to fail is the fact that a government may develop a policy or a plan, but they are removed within a 1 or 2 term, and they weren't able to effectively to completely implement those. Another government comes in, but they want to have their own caps on their shoulder, and they abandon that plan rather than having a succession of government where plans go that are there, they can work, they will work for the betterment of the territory and its people, but they're put on the back shelf because somebody wants a name for themselves. They come and they build their own.
So I'll say this to you, right? My intention is not to plant trees that I'm going to shade under. I want to plant trees that other people will shade under. I left Elmore Stout High School next year. It's 30 years, right? I graduated. There is no cafeteria. There is no auditorium. There is no gymnasium. We've spent hundreds of billions of dollars in our national budget. An idea that was created or started by someone else does not necessarily mean it's a bad idea. So I'm not interested in undoing what was done unless it makes sense. I also believe that things need to be brought in from the ground up and not from the top down. If the political leader is the one who's driving the change and the direction, it is going to change. But if the people are the ones and those who are in the fields of anything in our country, any sector, if that is what is driving it, Kathy, it does not matter who sits behind or outside. It matters where the engine is going. And the people of our country, they're the engine, they're the vehicle. You can throw the driver out, but if you have momentum, the car is still going to roll.
Okay, so in that instance, would you say that governments of the past, all of the past, have failed, or we as a people have failed to ensure governments do what they're supposed to do?
I think both. I think when you're giving a job, because it's a job, you look for a job, you want to serve. So you're doing a job, you're collecting a salary, you should be able to say whether or not you're achieving what it is you're supposed to do. But then also the employer is the people. And sometimes the people are not as vocal as they need. In the past, I've been criticized, even by the sitting government, for marching in the street and saying they didn't have a plan. They didn't have a plan. I haven't seen a plan. I haven't seen the outcomes in education, in youth development, in agriculture, in sewage. We have no water in some areas. We have a hillside burning down West End that's obviously going to impact people in a few years. We have children in our system.
You said in a few years.
Yeah.
It's currently already having its effect.
I think it's going to be on a bigger scale in a few years, right? So let me just clarify that. We have no national after-school programs anymore, right? Our seniors are not as active as they used to be. And I think just there are things that can be done. You can take our young people, you can put them to work with our seniors, bridge that gap that needs to be done. Because young people right now, technologically savvy. I've seen with my own eyes where a younger person teaches an older person how to swim. Transportation to the beach can be done. I just think there are simple things and there are solutions within our society that political leaders do not need to try to think that they have the answer to everything. Involve the people more. And the more you involve the people, the more they bite into the success of our country again. But if you're pushing them to the side, making decisions behind their backs, and then saying to them, well, sometimes you have to make hard decisions. How about making hard decisions for the majority?
Yes. but I want to ask you this. Very often we hear around this time, it's the talking season, elections are just around the corner. Persons listen to you, they hear, okay, this is the plan, this is what we can do, this is what should be done, and this is how we can do this to make this better. But they say, I haven't heard you before saying this. I haven't seen you around talking to me about this, but it's only when a campaign period comes around, people come to say, knock on my door and tell me this glory story could happen.
So Kathy, I'll say this to you, right? I have put my head where it was for the last 20 years, doing what it is that I was supposed to do. My focus was young people in the territory and making sure they had a better future, right? So my interactions have been with young people, they've been with parents, they've been with seniors in our society. If someone sees me on the street and they are like, they want to have a conversation with me, Kathy, I will have a conversation. If there is an issue that I think I need to speak up on, I speak up on the issue. But at the end of the day, I can't disagree with the populace feeling that way because I feel the same way. I question some of the candidates because I'm a voter. I can question the candidates. I question those who I am running with as a team. And because I am confident in them, I sit with them. So I think everyone has the right to feel apprehensive when someone comes to you, because let's be frank about it, ulterior motives exist. So you have to decipher who you want. The one thing I'll say is ensure that you trust your gut with who you give your vote to. And when you give them your vote, demand accountability, because integrity matters. It really matters. I myself, whoever I vote for, including myself, I will vote for myself, of course.
You better.
I will. I'm going to hold myself accountable for that as well. My accountability will then be with the persons that I'm serving, the country that I'm serving. Am I doing a good job? Not everything will be perfect, but is the majority of the country benefiting from it? If not, then at the end of the day, we have every right to question people. But the right to vote is a universal right that must be exercised. And if we're going to make people believe or feel that they should not vote, then again, something is wrong in our country.
Yeah, we're going to come back to that topic of ensuring that you vote and its importance. But I want to, before I lose my thought on it, just recently I was having a conversation with a group of people, and they seem to have this very strong conviction that something happens to people when they move from the public, from being a private citizen to becoming a public servant, especially at the head of government, that you change. And this is something they say they've been seeing. Well, I can honestly say, yeah, you see some difference. You're not able to deliver as you said you would have while you were out there campaigning. When you get into that outfit and you put on that jacket called minister or legislator, and you sit and you face the real fire and see how the wheels really turn, and then you realize that, sugars, I should have had a different type of conversation while I was campaigning. Do you have a fear of that or a concern of that?
Kathy, I'm a human being, of course. I have been disappointed by persons who I have voted for that have gone in and they've forgotten why they were there. And people will say to you, well, this is the reason why I didn't do this and this is the reason why I didn't do that. But didn't they still have a voice? That's why I admire persons like Honorable Shireen Flax. I admire persons like Melvin Turnbull, Mitch. I admire them because they speak up. At the end of the day, if your hands are tied, I think the populace will respect you more for explaining why, rather than sitting down. It's like watching your neighbor's house burn, thinking that a little wind can't blow and the ash won't fall on your house and your house will fall. I don't think the majority of the territory expects miracles. The BVI will not change the day after election. It will not change 6 months after election. It's a process. But if there is effort, even in all of our lives, when we see effort, we recognize effort, correct?
Oh, yes.
Okay.
So one move forward, one move backward.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But effort and communication, and that's very important.
You just touched the nail on the head with a hammer. That big issue of communication. I mean, you out there, this is something you do, especially in the arena of youths and other entrepreneurs. Where have we gone wrong? Or I should ask, did we go wrong?
Of course we did wrong.
As it relates to paying attention to how we communicate to people.
I definitely think so. Criticism is something you have to be able to take. Your back has to be strong. Not everyone is going to agree with what is being done. Not everyone is going to buy into it. But Kathy, it's insulting when you know that you voted for someone, you're supporting a government, and then they're doing things that you yourself as an average person, an average citizen in the country, you feel you have no voice, you have no input. The way in which our government, to me, in my opinion, communicates with us is one way. And if someone says something and you don't agree with it, people take things personal. I can be your friend personally, but professionally I might disagree with you. But again, I come back down to communication, especially with our youth. Our youth are not aware of how things are going. We were doing voter registration. Some of them were not aware of how to do it, how easily they could do it. I have persons in this country who I've met, who've lived here for 30 years. They're not aware of how they can vote, how they can get things done. So where is the campaign? The government, we have issues right now. We're talking about same-sex marriage. We're talking about cannabis. We're talking about whether or not we want independence. And we've been tossing this word referendum around. How many people in our country really understand what a referendum is?
That is being able to go down to the level of the grassroots and to have a conversation. And it seems to be that is the area where we are failing. We are communicating at a so-class, elite, educated, well academic level when we have the vast majority they got big mouths. And when they tear up for talk and to pull you down, trust me, the same things different of you. And it seems as though we are not reaching the grassroots effectively.
So as an educator, I understand how to break things down, I think, and present them to people. Grassroots movements in the BVI need to be revitalized in every aspect. But again, as an educator, if you educate children, they will educate their parents. How are we growing leaders in our country? Where in our school curriculum, where in our after-school curriculum are we seeing leaders being given the opportunity? How are we ensuring that economies in the BVI are going to be dominated by our youth going forward? What are we putting in place? And these things can be done. I'm a diver. I love the environment. I will never run from that. I love the blue economy. And marine industry needs to be dominated by persons in the BVI who grew up in the BVI. It's nothing against anyone else. Within our schools, we should see programs in the after-school programs, in the school program, where tourism is focused towards the marine industry, even if it's for the next 5, 10 years, so that within the next 15, 20 years or whatever, there is dominance there. Boat captains, marine surveying, fiberglass, work on boats. There are things that can be done, and then tie that into extra credit or academic credit within the school. So if a child is doing something outside of school and is worth it, they should get credit for it. We have to be more targeted in where we want our country to go. And this is all about creating careers and livelihoods for our people. Again, one of my goals is for us to have a conversation and redefine education. What is education for us? In the 1980s, we had an education review where we looked at the entire system, the 1980s. Whether we were getting value for money, whether our human resources were where they needed to be, where we wanted to go, whether we had the right infrastructure. Kathy, that's 1980. So we've been throwing things, money at programs and saying, let's try this, let's try that, let's do this, let's do that. We don't know if we're doing anything right. We're just assuming. Let's find out where we are. Let's find out where we want to go. And let's make a path there. But that path has to be a shared vision with everyone who's interested in it.
But while we say that, we need to be doing this and we need to be doing that to attract and to get our people more engaged and employable industries here in the territory, there are those persons who are literally, I don't like saying the from here thing, but Virgin Islanders who would say, this small rock ain't got nothing for my child. I am just giving my child to get out there and to make themselves big. When the child get out there, there are quite a number who do come back and try to make an impact in it. But we know a whole lot stay away simply because mommy and daddy would have said, go out there, the wider world is rock. Hey, come up for vacation when you want, but hey, don't have anything to offer. But yet there are those like you who would say, look, we need to get our people more into these industries. It need to be dominated more. But then those on the outside, those in here are going out to get it, and persons on the outside are seeing the advantage of what you have here and coming and making good use of it. How you fix that, if there is a fix at all?
There's something called national pride, right? Civic responsibility, wanting to do what's right within your own country. There's nothing wrong with going and getting experience, but bring that experience back. And not every one of us is going to leave. And when I say persons in the BVI, I want to make that very clear, Kathy. I am not just talking about persons who were born here. If you're living in a society, you're paying taxes, and this is where you want to live, you are part of a society. And that should be recognized. My parents came here. My mother's from Anguilla. My father's from the UK. And I know people have a hot topic about where I was born. I was born in the UK.
That would have been our closeout. Anyhow, go ahead.
So let's go. I was born in the UK, and I came here when I was 8 months old. I've been to primary school, high school here. I've been educated by taxpayers' dollars, right? As a matter of fact, I say this with a lot of shame. I have not returned to the UK since I was born.
Why shame?
Well, because, you know, you need to see where you were born, right?
See your neighbor sing Berry?
Yes, something like that.
Yes,
But for me, the Virgin Islands is my home. And I think a lot of people, well, I know a lot of people in the BVI, they consider the Virgin Islands to be their home. My father refers to Tortola and the BVI as his home. He has a vested interest. He has lived his life here, you know, and we can't discredit people. You invite people in, let's keep the best of who is here or who wants to come and allow them to have a life here. I do believe Virgin Islands, a person's born in the territory, I do believe there should be certain things that they gain because of that. But we cannot build a country by not looking at who loves the country. And if people love a country, then let them feel welcomed.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
So let's talk about this very ticklish part of it. We can do all of this. You can campaign the world over. But if the persons who are qualified to vote do not understand and see the significance of that tick on a ballot or two, well, you got one,
Five.
two, three, five ticks. They don't see that as valuable. They don't see that, you know, okay, well, some may say that, you know, in the past, I've been voting. Well, same thing, according to somebody, same cat supposed every time. Talk to people to help them to understand what it means to have those 5 stars on a ballot paper. Waking up in the morning with the mindset that I have looked at all the candidates and I need to see this. I need a better life in this territory. I need to see things done for the future generation of this territory. I need to see our borders being one that is well cherished and respected world over. Talk to those people.
So Kathy, I'll say this, right? I was at UVA attending college and I was a newly registered voter. I can't remember exactly which year it was, you know. And I got to the polling station. There were 2 candidates. They announced my name. One candidate was like, who is this? Where did he come from? Another one was like, okay, I remember him. During that election campaign, none of those candidates visited me. They didn't say anything to me, right? But I followed them because I wanted to be invested in who I was voting for. And I made my decision before I got to the poll who it was I was voting for. I don't think the at-large system was in place at that time. And I voted. No, I'm not going to say whether the person that I voted for won or not. But what happened there was I was seen. I was noticed, right? And from then on, I could have conversations with that district representative about the future in the BVI. And I get along fairly well with him right now. I actually respect the gentleman very much. And for me, showing up and showing that you are interested and you are part of a system and having the right to vote, whether it's a birthright or it's a right that you have gotten for living here for some time. There is something in knowing that you have the ability to influence what went wrong or what is going to go right. And I say what went wrong because most of us think the negative all the time. It's time to think a little bit different. You know, take a chance. If you are going to say you're not going to go out and vote because it's not going to change everything, Kathy, whether you like one color or you like the other color, there are diehard persons in the BVI that are going to go out because they have been taken care of. And they're going to vote for who they want to take care, who they know are going to take care of them. So sitting down and saying, I don't think I'm going to do it, go and cast a vote. You have 5. If you don't want to use all 5, use 4 and vote for PVIM, right? Because we're at large. And use the other one in the district if we have a district candidate. But above all, exercise the right to vote, sit back, say a prayer, have hope, and be vocal. Say you're not happy. Social media costs no one anything, including our politicians who can get on social media and say happy birthday, good morning, but you can't go on social media and say, you know what, even though I'm not responsible for this issue in government, I have been telling them that it needs to be done. Why can we only be vocal in the House?
So I gotta ask you this question now that you would have said it. You said vote for all 4 of the PVIM candidates. What stands out with the PVIM at-large candidate as opposed to the at-large candidates of the other parties?
So you're looking for a contrast?
Yeah, so why should I vote for you as opposed to someone else from another party or an independent?
I think I've answered the call, and PVIM has at least with 3 of us, right? So let's start with Ingrid. She's a fresh face. She's an attorney. with everything we're facing in the BVI, independence, constitutional review, COI recommendations, we wanted to make sure that we had someone who had a legal mind. Ingrid is there, but Ingrid is always also in touch with social issues in our country. She understands it. She sits in the court. She understands what's going on, the social fabric of our country, and she has ideas on how these things should be fixed, right? Shayna is a new face for me still, because she's been like the Paul Watley who has never given up and is always saying, I am here to serve, I am here to serve. She understands the civil service. She's a civil engineer. She knows about our roads and what needs to be done. Her voice has been consistent. She didn't just show up, right? Our leader, Honorable Skelton, arguably one of the best elected officials when it came to our finance. And finance is a big issue for us right now. We have a lot of mismanagement, and we're not sure which direction to go. He can help us with that. He also brings years of experience to us. Yes, let's be real, things he shouldn't do and things you should do. And I think that's a balance that's necessary. And then myself, I think I'm the freshest face you might see this election, right? I am very unconventional in the way I think. I have a love for the virginals. My soul is towards young people in the BVI. I will never hide that. So being a voice for young people, but also being an example. I might not be a perfect example. I will make mistakes, but I can take the criticism. I don't mind the criticism because I understand that my decisions do not just impact me. They're going to impact the children that are here, their children, and more that will come thereafter. So when I look at one slate of candidates versus the other slate of candidates, for me, I'm sitting where I wanted to sit.
Okay.
The other seats, I would not have sat in.
Okay. Well, the clock is on us, but there is one thing I want you to do for me in this moment. I can see the worry, the care, the fear of those many children who hangs on to your pants, your clothes, they're on your skin like leech. They are worried as if they are about to lose this man that they're so attached to. Should he win the general election and goes into the House of Assembly, will he still have that time for us? Would we still feel him? Would we still see him? I want you to use the final minute or so to talk to those children.
So Kathy, I went to the science fair yesterday and I really enjoyed it. I'm still a teacher by heart, right? And I've had parents at YEP, I've had children at YEP. Mr. Matey, you're running. It's even interesting when one little girl said to me, she said, you know, I'm going to know someone who's famous. You see that hope that they have there in me, it's not going to be lost. YEP is my legacy. Okay, that is what I think ultimately I was going to make my largest contribution to the BVI. But God has shown me there is something else that maybe I might need to do. I'm going to be around. If you see me walking around, I'm still Mr. Mather. You can still come and pull on me. You can still call me Stacy. You can still call me Buddha. Whatever you celebrate in life, I will always be proud of you. I don't have to be next to you to be proud of you. But when you see me, don't hesitate coming up to me if I'm successful or when I'm successful. Come up to me. Give me my side hug. Talk to me. Show me what you've been doing. Tell me the things that are not happy and, you know, the things that are. But at the end of the day, know that YEP will grow because it has to grow. This is not just about me. This is about you.
And you will be reaching out to them.
Always.
Always. But I had to get that one in from you, Stacy. It's been a great conversation. Top of the morning, yeah, really mellow and nice, and
always good.
Yeah, always good. We know that this is not going to be a strange seat for you, especially in this period. We're going to hear more from you. Absolutely. We're going to some deep issues because when you have taken on a role of an aspiring legislator, it goes beyond the surface conversation.
Agreed.
And touching the little emotional side of things, but there are deep things that we still have to look at. So once time permits, that chair is yours, and make good use of it.
Just call me and I'll be here.
All right, he's singing now. I want to thank you so much for joining us for this edition of The Big Story. I'm Kathy Richards.